So if anybody has any questions along the way, please just stop me and ask me. Okay?
A hippie van.
We don't have a whole lot of people on here, but I just thought we had an opening tonight, and some of the raging comments in some of the different online forums has to do about field day and what are we going to do about field day in this age of social distancing. And the ARRL has been somewhat silent about it. Did issue a statement, but they haven't canceled the field day. They haven't changed any rules up until now. So I thought I would talk about field day and what we can do this year. Okay. So I just hit advance. Nothing is happening.
Well, it might take a while here. The mothership, is very busy.
If you guys want to help them out, you can disable it.
Go.
Okay, there you go.
So why the presentation? Okay. Basically, I love field day, and I want to share my excitement with other people. The current social distancing requirements kind of demand a single operation field day, or if you have family members, maybe a family operation. But this kind of means changing our plans and doing something different, right? Why do field day? Field day demonstrates amateur radio's purpose, and it keeps us active and, most importantly, prepared. I hope everybody on the line would be capable of setting up a station in a very short period of time if there was an emergency. The really nice thing about field day is setup begins at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 10 weeks from tomorrow. So if you don't have the capability to operate a field day station or set up a field day station, you have 10 weeks to work on it, which I would think is plenty of time. Field day this year is a way to socially interact with other ham radio operators from a distance. And it's also a way for us to socially interact with other club members if we can get everybody on the air. Most importantly, and I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I really love field day. For me, field day is the highlight of my my amateur radio year, and it's something that I absolutely fell in love with on my first field day. Okay, so here you see a young K1BG who was WN1 or WA1KBG at the time, falling in love with field day. I was polite, humble, shy, modest, and skinny.
All those things you're not today.
Thankfully, the only thing I have left is my love for field day. So I've been doing this a long time, and it's fun. I find it fun. Anyway, how do I do field day single operator, or how could you do field day single operator? The first thing I recommend is that you go to arrl.org if you're at all interested and familiarize yourself with the rules. So I downloaded the rules earlier today, okay, just to make sure that if I put something in this presentation, there was a reasonable chance that it would be accurate. Think about what bands and modes you want to operate on. And what I mean by that is, if you're a technician class licensee, okay, and you've got 2 meter FM, think about how you're going to operate on that band with that mode. If you're more of an HF kind of person, think about what bands and modes you want to operate on. I'm not suggesting that if you've never used CW before that you try to operate, do a CW operation in a big way, but maybe you can think about doing data if you've never done that before. Maybe you can think about doing phone if you're more of a CW guy. If you're a technician class licensee, think about in the next 10 weeks, can I go from 2 meters to 440? Can I go from 2 meters to 10 meters? Okay, how do I go about doing that? What do I need? Think about what kind of operating power you want to get involved with. And again, if you're thinking purely about the score, there are different multipliers for different classes of operation. If you're a QRP guy, maybe you want to operate QRP. I'm a big power guy, but on field day, I generally like to operate 100 watts on field day. So it's important in setting up the kind of station you want and thinking about how you're going to provide emergency power for field day. If you're a QRP guy, you can do this with a battery. If you're a 1500 watt guy, you need like Jim's generator to help you out on field day, right? If you're going to do that. And by the way, people do operate 1500 watts. They operate QRO on field day. If you're operating 5 watts or less and on a battery, you get a nice big multiplier. You get a ×5 multiplier on all the contact points you make. If you're less than 150 watts, you get a 2 times multiplier. If you're less than 1500 watts, you get a multiplier of 1. And if you're greater than 1500 watts, according to the old rules, you get a multiplier of 0. So think about that when you're planning your station.
What about solar?
Again, solar is again considered emergency power. Okay, I believe, and I'd have to go and take a look at the rules, but I believe you can do that on any of these classes. I think there's a bonus for using non-fossil fuel sources for charging your batteries or powering your station. So, but solar is clearly, as long as it's, we'll talk more about the classes, okay? But any of the emergency classes require that you're not using commercial power, okay? And so solar clearly qualifies for that as long as you're not getting your commercial power, not contracting your commercial power for your, through a solar provider kind of thing. So you have to decide on an operating class. We're going to talk more about that. But the question is, you want to operate portable? You want to operate from your home? You want to operate mobile or from an emergency operations center? Again, from the point of view of social distancing, I'm not sure that the emergency operations center is really viable this year, but that is a class that's available. Okay. And then you put a plan together, okay? What are your goals, equipment, antennas? What are when you read the field day rules, there are bonus points for all kinds of things, okay? How do you find a site? Where do you find a site, okay? What do you need for shelter, logistics, food, fuel, sleep? All of these things are things you should think about in advance. You don't want to set up in a picnic table in the middle of a field, start operating, and then have a downpour come along, and you say, gee whiz, I never thought about putting, a covering over my head kind of thing. So these are all things you've got to think about in advance. By the way, as far as putting a plan together goes, plan on having a great time, okay? Your plan should encompass the fact, okay, that you want to enjoy yourself. And what I mean by that is, I am not going to decide to do a mountaintop operation, okay? My hiking days went with my knees and my ankles, okay? And I don't think I would enjoy myself by hiking to the top of a hill or hiking to the top of a mountain and do field day, okay? I'll show you what I did a few years ago. That's part of what I have coming up later. But plan on having a good time. Plan on something that you can accomplish. Plan on something where you're going to enjoy yourself. Okay, single operator, field day single operator. Assuming, I'm making an assumption here that it's going to be one transmitter, okay? There are different entry classes. So again, if you go to the rules, Class 1A is a club or non-club portable, 3 or more persons, okay? I'm just going to assume, I'm going to cross that off the list for this year. I'm hoping that there will be enough normalcy in 10 weeks that maybe we can consider a field day, or maybe we can consider a smaller field day than what we're used to. Right now, I'm only thinking in terms of single operator social distancing. How do I do field day myself if I have to? So Class 1A is kind of out. Class 1B, Class 1A battery is also the same thing. It's a portable operation focused around clubs. There's a Class 1B, okay, for 1 or 2 person portable. Now I put 2 in italics because maybe we're not going to do 2-person operations, or maybe they're family operations. By the way, when these results are listed in QST, 1A1 and 1A2 are listed separately. So it's interesting. They consider one transmitter, 1 or 2 people, separate classes, depending on if they're 1 or 2 people. Same thing with battery. There's a 1B battery class, 1 or 2 person portable. Class 1C mobile. Again, field day is something where you operate under emergency conditions, and they consider somebody set up for a mobile operation to be a potential emergency communications station, and there is actually a field day class for mobile operators. Class 1D is home stations, okay, commercial power. In other words, every one of us would sit down at their home station and just fire it up and talk to other field day stations. But there is a limitation, okay? And this is one of the things that's getting a great deal of commentary on the web these days. The limitation is this. If you operate Class D, according to the rules, you cannot communicate with other Class D stations. You're supposed to be there as someone that emergency stations can communicate with. And so that's the limitation. And what people are talking about this year is that if there are going to be no portable operations, then everybody will be operating from home. And why can't Class D stations for this year speak with each other? Okay? And while I understand the desire to do this, field day is supposed to be a test of emergency preparedness. We're all supposed to be prepared. And so I like to think that people will do the minimal amount of work required, even if they don't want to venture far from home, okay, to set up their stations in an emergency-like situation. We can talk more about this later. Class E is home stations running emergency power. So in other words, you can operate from your home, from your normal station, but instead of plugging that 12-volt rig into a 12-volt power supply and plugging it into the wall, you may want to plug that rig onto a car battery or some kind of marine battery, some kind of 12-volt battery. So Class 1E is home stations on emergency power.
What about a generator operating to the house?
So I would say, again, that's Class 1E, a home station running emergency power.
Bruce, I get the impression that you are suggesting that we avoid 1 Delta.
I'm not saying avoid 1 Delta. I'm saying that if you operate 1 Delta according to the rules, there may not be a lot of people this year for you to actually speak with. If everybody's operating 1 Delta, 1 Delta stations are not supposed to speak with each other. Okay?
Unless they rescind or whatever.
Unless they rescind or unless you're happy to go with 0 points. Okay?
Right.
Or, and by the way, there's a lot of different opinions about all of this. I know someone who routinely operates, they will say they're 1A, okay? And so they operate from home. They give out contacts as if they're an emergency station. They never submit any scores to the ARL, okay? They never submit a field day score. So they're not operating illegally. In other words, they're using their call signs, they're within the bands, they're within the power requirements, all of those kinds of things. And while technically they may not be a Class 1A station, they like to hand contacts out, and they don't submit a score. So if they're not submitting a score for any kind of recognition or any kind of awards, they feel that they're not cheating, and they feel that they're not violating the intent of the rules. Okay, that may be somewhat debatable, but I'm telling you what other people do. Okay.
Yep.
Class 1F is emergency operating in an emergency operations center. Again, I don't think you can really figure out a way to do this and maintain social distancing, but maybe. Okay. Maybe, if you're a fireman or a policeman and you're regularly at the police station, there's a chance that they will let you set up in a quiet corner and operate. So I don't want to cross this off the list, but I don't think this is going to be a very common kind of situation, right? So these are really kind of the different classes that you can operate in. And again, think in advance, if you're thinking about setting up for field day, how does one of these entry classes fit into your plans?
Okay, question, Bruce.
Go ahead.
Restriction of Class 1 Delta to not contact other 1 Deltas. Does that also apply to 1 Echo?
No.
Okay, so 1 Echo can talk to anybody.
Again, you're on emergency power. So it's considered, emergency preparedness. Okay. We'll talk more about this later, because I'll tell you, I haven't made plans this year, but one of my considerations is operating Class 1B with a generator at my home. Okay, but not using my existing antennas and not using my shack. Okay, in other words, doing what I'm about to show you from somewhere in my backyard with temporary antennas. And the question is,
Bruce, are you saying 1 Delta or 1 Echo?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. It wouldn't. I'm saying I would classify myself as 1 Bravo. Okay.
Ah, got it.
Because. And again, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this later. It's part of the spirit of the rules, and I'm sure we'll get into discussions. And no matter what happens, everybody always wants to talk about the little details in the rules, right? So we'll come back to this. All right, you have to sit down and think about, what do you want to get out of this if you're going to have a good time, right? You want to be casual about operating? Do you want to be serious about operating? You want to learn anything new, okay? You interested in taking on maybe a new mode, a new band, testing out, new equipment, antennas, power sources, all that kind of thing. Amateur radio is learning, and field day is about learning how to operate under emergency conditions. So you should really think about what you want to take on, okay? You want to compete. There is field day as an emergency preparedness exercise, and there's field day as a, let's go bang our heads against the wall and compete with other clubs and other stations. you have to decide where you are in this picture and what you want to do. Do I submit a score at the end of this? There's a lot of people who operate who never bother submitting a score. I don't. I thought I saw something come up, some text, but I'm not. Okay. There's some chatter on the. Okay, never mind. And then, do you seek publicity and other bonus points? So when you read the field day rules, there's hundreds of bonus points you can get. Sorry, Owen, 730 Owen, sorry you can't make it. If you're interested, I can give the rest of this to you again later. Do you want to seek the publicity and in other bonus points? And if you're going to do that, you've got to think about that up front.
So, Bruce, if I'm operating from my backyard, can I put a sign out that says amateur radio demonstration here today?
You could, but from the sake of social distancing, I would recommend against that.
Yeah.
Okay? But however, if you wanted to copy the field day message from W1AW, you get 100 points for that.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's the point I've never made. That's the point I'm trying to make. And we'll talk about that coming up. Okay? So those are the goals. So one of the things you got to think about, where you're going to operate. You're going to do it from home, okay? And what does that mean? It can be your regular operating position. It can be from somewhere else, okay? You portable, what are you going to do? Field, trailer. Are you going to set up a portable station in your car? That, by the way, to me is the easiest way to do field day, okay? Is park your car, put a dipole or an inverted V in a tree, and operate. Okay, it's really simple, okay? As opposed to being mobile or the emergency operations center. All right, so think about the logistics, transceiver, antenna, power, shelter table, chair, logging, fuel, transportation, meals, bug spray, flashlight, TP. You know what TP is?
It's impossible to get right now.
Correct, it's not the tent you're gonna be in, okay? It's the deep place you're going to be in if you don't find any, okay? So you have to think about all of these things before you head off deep.
Party City has TP.
What's that?
Party City has TP.
Party City.
Yeah, it's listed as crinkle paper or something.
Okay.
Thanks for the tip.
So, in 2014, if anyone remembers 2014, it was the big WRTC year. And I had one of the beam teams, and I was just basically burnt out with the whole social interaction thing. I love my club. I love doing stuff with my club, but this field day was 2 weeks before WRTC, and I just wanted to get away from everything just for the weekend, okay? So I decided to do a single op field day. What's interesting is that I think Jim, AB1WQ, stumbled upon the NVARC field day that weekend, and this led to him getting into amateur radio, but we didn't meet until later. We certainly didn't meet that weekend, okay? I decided I was going to do field day by myself, and according to plan, 100 watts, class 1B, single operator, single transmitter, portable, okay? My goals were to operate, okay? I just wanted to be able to sit down and operate as much as I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. As many hours as possible, but certainly not the full 24 hours, okay? I wanted it to be close to home, but not at home. If I'm at home, I felt I would be getting honeydews and all kinds of things that might disrupt my field day operation. So I decided I wasn't going to be at home. And I did the one-man setup, no additional support. I should correct this. Maybe it should be the one-person setup, okay? But I didn't think about that when I was writing the presentation. So if I've offended anybody, well, Okay.
It's okay. We don't mind.
There you go. But anyway, so it was really keep it simple. I picked a site. I picked operating in an open field because it's field day. Okay. I found a place close to. Oh, here we go. So the site specifically, a field day specifically, I set up in a neighbor's field. I've got a good friend who lives in the neighborhood, Peter Warren. He's got 40 acres behind his house. Part of it woods, part of it field. I'd been out there walking, and I just decided that's where I wanted to go. The logistics, I brought an IC 746 Pro. It's my backup transceiver. This is the same transceiver we used on 6 meters last year in field day. Dipoles that I had hanging on the wall in the basement that are kind of always there for when I go camping, for when we used to do Lighthouse on the Air. No skip. The 20-meter dipole is not the one that we cut that year when I forgot the antennas. I had an antenna switch, a mechanical antenna switch. I brought it. For cover, I brought the screen room that I typically bring on field day. Computer, laptop, flat screen monitor, keyboard, mouse, N1MM for logging, WinKey keyer for sending CW, and rig control that interface with the computer. Ralph kindly lent me a 2,000 watt Honda generator, and we'll see pictures of that. My transportation was my old Jeep Wrangler, which has gone to Jeep Wrangler heaven. But it was large enough to carry everything at one time. And for meals, I decided I was either going to come home or go to Dunkin' Donuts for coffee. Okay, so that was kind of the plan.
And what year was this? I'm sorry.
2014.
Thank you.
So here's the site from the air. I have a few sites of this. You see this big field with the clump of trees in the middle? The clump of trees provided a great spot for hanging inverted Vs. Why inverted Vs? Because you throw one line over a tree and you can pull an antenna up. If it's a dipole, you have to do that twice, and I wasn't interested in doing that twice. Okay, so I stuck with inverted Vs. This is roughly facing east. And this shot, interestingly enough, I think this one is from Bing Maps. I don't know exactly when it was taken, but the aerial photo is taken from a position that's roughly over my house. And I'll show you that in a minute. This is the same shot, but facing north. And so you see the clump of trees in the middle. I set up just to the west of those, so just to the left side of the trees that separate the two fields. This is from further away. If you can see my cursor, this is roughly where I set up. This is where I live. Okay. I've walked through here on, hikes and walks kind of thing, right? But I loaded up the car, drove down, around, and came through, right? Okay. And if we look at this, we're roughly 1,105 feet from my home station operating position to my field day operating position. So when I say it was field day style in a field, truly field day style in a field, but it was really close to home. Okay. So, anyway, this is what the setup looked like from a couple hundred feet away, from the opposite side of the field. My neighbor kindly cut the grass the week before, so I wouldn't have to deal with tall grass. I took a fishing line and threw up a single rope, and I'll show you more about that in the middle. Screen room, sun was coming in from the west. I believe I took this I probably took this picture after field day was done, from the looks of the sun, and I still have the cover so I could have some shadow. Um, Looking a little closer, you can see this is the line going up into the trees, right? And what you see here are three inverted V's, and the next picture will show this a little better. These are the center insulators for the three inverted V's. What I typically do with my dipoles is I will, one side of the dipole will be insulated wire with one color insulator, and I'll use a different color on the other side so that when they become a snarled mess, it's a little bit easier to tell what part of the snarl is from what part of the dipole, right? So this was a different color insulator. You can't see the other side of the inverted V, but basically the rope got the top dipole, which I believe was the 80-meter one. I put maybe about 3 feet of rope between that and the second one, and about a 3-foot piece of rope between that and the third one. Tied them all together on the ground, got on the other side, and just basically pulled them up through the trees. Okay? This is the way they look from a distance. And I did that with one shot of the surf caster over the branch. So how high up did it go? I certainly wasn't into the top of the trees by any stretch, but I wanted to get up to a decent height, and so I clipped this. I clipped this on when I pulled it up, and we've got a kind of apex of 53 feet for the top antenna. So 53 feet, 50 feet, and 47 feet, okay? I had 3 dipoles. I had an 80-meter dipole, a 40-meter dipole, which worked well on 15 meters, and a 20-meter dipole, okay? Separate antennas. I thought about building a fan dipole, so I'd have one antenna to do it all, and I said, why would I want to build a fan dipole when I've got 3 dipoles hanging on the wall ready to go, and I've got coax spooled up ready to go, and I can just deploy what I've got rather than building something new. So that's what I decided to do. Another different view, this is more from the side. This one was taken in the afternoon on Saturday, and again, it looks a lot like the way the Neshoba Valley Club does, the way I do a CW station within the Neshoba Valley Club field days, right? Okay. What's interesting is that the thought occurred to me while I was setting this up that this is far easier for me to set up than the typical amount of work I do on our typical field day with the club. Okay. And I started, this took me about 2 hours to get everything set up, including the power distribution and including all of it. And I couldn't understand why it was so much easier. And then it's all the other things that we do to make our larger field day more efficient. I didn't have to bother doing. So I didn't have to worry about the networking working. I didn't have to worry about the 2x6 antenna switch working. Okay. These are all things that I just didn't have to worry about them. And so it seemed to go much smoother. And the antennas were really very simple to put up. Like all good, installations, I decided to throw the SWR meter, the antenna analyzer, and see what the SWR looked like. So at the top of the band, I was 1.3 to 1. At the bottom of the band, 2.6. It's a little bit high, but certainly within reason on an antenna cut for the 40-meter band. And the low point in SWR came about 72.24. So I just ran with what I had. Didn't try to make any adjustments. Used the automatic antenna tuner in the transceiver. Screenshot, N1MM running. the monitor with the transceiver, and the entire station. Okay. What's interesting is that I mentioned in my slides the plan was to have a wind keyer to be able to send all my Morse code for me, right? Okay. Um, Unfortunately, um, I had a problem with the keyer that I couldn't figure out while I was there. It would send absolute gibberish and nonsense. Okay. And I couldn't
Is that any
figure.
different from usual?
Thank you. And I couldn't figure out why. And in the end, I basically unplugged the keyer, okay, plugged in the paddle, and sent by hand the entire weekend. Okay, I did it the old-fashioned way. I used the keyer that was located in the inside the transceiver and just sent manually. And it turned out, okay, you should always test things before like you have to use them, right? So it turned out I had a little jumper cable. It's a 3-footer, okay, that goes between the paddle and the keyer, okay? And the tip and the first ring were swapped inside the cable, okay? So when I was supposed to be sending dits, I was sending DAS, and when I was supposed to be sending DAS, I was sending dits. Okay, so I couldn't use the cable. Okay, and in fact, I have basically tossed that cable because I don't want to find I have to use that cable again somewhere else, right? But it's just one of those things, and I couldn't figure it out, and I just finally said, forget about it. Just send by hand for the weekend. I got the rate meter going pretty good. You're on field day, 100 watts with dipoles. If you can do 100 contacts in an hour on field day, that's pretty good. And I wound up having an hour where I did 108 in this hour. Okay, so I felt really good about that. I was shocked. I was surprised. I never thought it would come out like that. Here's what I had for a power setup. I had a pretty long extension cord, and so I tried to separate myself from the generator. There's constant noise coming from the generator, and I just wanted that to be physically separate. So I want to say I put that maybe 150 feet or 200 feet away, right? It's a 2,000 watt Honda generator. It had the suction hose attachment, and so there was a separate 5-gallon jug.
We don't see the generator yet.
Excuse me?
We don't see the generator. There you go.
Wow. That was a long delay.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it came up for me about 30 seconds ago.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, it came up immediate to me.
just got it.
Well,
Thank
fine.
you.
Wow. Okay. So basically, the way this works is that it's an airtight cap on the generator with a hose coming out. As the generator uses gasoline, it basically siphons or sucks in gasoline from the second jug, the one that's in the middle as you look at this, right? And so what's really great about this is that you don't have to, the generator is sealed, so you don't have to worry about refilling it or any of that stuff because it fills from an external source. So I was prepared to pour more gasoline into the second jug in order to keep the first one going, kind of thing, right? But also what's interesting is that this generator maybe used 2 gallons of gasoline the whole weekend. I mean, I just completely, overestimated the amount of gasoline I would need. I had jugs of gasoline left like forever that I was putting in, that I just had to periodically siphon off and put into the car kind of thing because I had way too much gasoline planned. But anyway, better to be over prepared. And again, I started this up at 2:00 in the afternoon. I shut this off at maybe 1:00 in the morning when I went home. When I came back in the morning, I turned it on and I shut it off when field day was over. Okay, and that was basically it. It just ran the whole time. All right, so how did I do? Okay, so first of all, My goal was to have fun. I had a blast. Okay. I made 1,231 contacts. Okay. I was on the air 19 hours and 40 minutes according to N1MM out of the 24 hours. I worked 72 out of the 75 then ARRL sections, missing Puerto Rico, Alaska, and Northern Territories. And I worked 9 DXCC countries other than the U.S., Canada, Hawaii, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And this is the breakdown by band. And really, this is kind of what you would expect. I don't know. I had a separate antenna for 10 meters that never really worked out right. And I think for 10 meters, what I was doing was using the tuner on the 80-meter antenna. But anyway, wound up making 852 CW contacts and 379 single sideband contacts. Right? So these are the results out of QST. So I did 4th out of 104 entries in 1B1, single op. Okay? Some of the guys that beat me had serious like antennas and stuff. Okay? I don't know who their ground crews were, but they certainly weren't my ground crew. I'll tell you that right now. If you look at this, the first number is the number of contacts made, right? So I made 1,231 contacts. The second number is the multiplier. So because I was less than 150 watts, I had a multiplier of 2. The third is the number of operators, and in 1B1, these will all be one operator. And the final was the number of points. And I think I got bonus points for copying the message and submitting the logs electronically. Maybe there was another bonus point in there, but not a lot. What's interesting, if you go down, see that guy Cam5VI, 2,256 contacts? Okay. That was serious because he only had a multiplier of 1, meaning that he was running like greater than 150 watts. My suspicion is he was running 1,500 watts, so he didn't get the multiplier, which is why he made a whole lot more contacts, and he was probably making a lot of phone contacts as well, right, where you don't get as many points for phone contacts. So anyway, this was the results. But also in these days where social distancing is so important, I should have done a better job socially distancing myself from ticks, because I wound up with a wicked bad case of Lyme disease due to this.
Oh, no.
And it serves me right. It serves me right for doing field day by myself and not with my club, okay?
You need a Corona to go with that Lyme.
There you go. I like to think that if I had gone with NVARC on field day that year, everybody would have gotten Lyme disease. So there you go. So the question is, what do you want to do on field day? Okay? Because we have 10 weeks to go, and I'm hoping we can do a real field day. But if we can't, what do you want to do? Okay? And so I'll leave that open. I'll leave that open for discussion. Any questions, any discussion, and any thoughts from the audience about?
Bruce, we're losing your audio.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
It's bad.
Not so well.
There's a noise source came on.
No, that's not me, I don't think. Can...
Yeah, it's only on you.
Really? Hang on.
Sounds like a fan.
Jessica, can you mute your microphone for a moment?
Gone away now,
Did
isn't it?
Okay, good.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that was. So, but the question is, folks, what do you want to do on field day? So let's have some discussions and some what ifs. I have the rules in front of me, and I know we had questions on categories, and particularly the class A category, okay? So let's see. Stations must be located in places that are not regular station locations and must not use facilities installed for permanent station use or use any structure installed permanently for field day. So, one of the questions is, can I set up a table in my backyard and put an antenna in the trees and have that count as a Class A station, okay? Because it's not a regular station location, okay?
Why not?
Because from old FCC parlance, your station location was an address.
So
So this is the kind of discussions that people have, right? In my opinion, your station location is your shack, is the table, right? And if you operate portable in your backyard under a tent or a tarp or on a picnic table,
yeah,
an antenna that you put up
operations.
that day, I don't personally see any problem with that, but others may have opinions. So,
Bruce, this is Phil. Do you get the idea that the ARRL is really going to end up coming down with some kind of guidance on this? Or do you think they're going to just let this ride right up till June?
Phil, it's not a question of guidance. When I look at the field day rules, okay, I view the current situation as being totally in line, okay, with current field day rules. I have no problem with, if you want to operate from home, field day rules allow you to do that. Okay, and they actually give you a lot of leeway. You can operate at home using commercial power, or you can operate at home using emergency power, and so you can participate in many different ways currently. So I'm not even sure what they have to rule on, Phil.